Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefühl. We are here today in Hamburg to bring you a workshop from Volkswagen to show us all the new details on the latest version of the 8th generation of the Volkswagen Passat. Has anything changed? Well, let's take a closer look and find out. (1973) is when the Passat launched. Since then, there have been one or two small changes. We're now in our 8th generation of the Passat, and this is its second iteration. Now, this spring marks the era when 30 million of these cars will have been sold. That makes it number 2 in the Volkswagen pantheon. Any guesses on number 1? Come on, of course, it's the Golf. Number 3, by the way, is the Beetle. So to say that this is an important car for Volkswagen might be understating it slightly. So there have been some changes in the new refresh, some changes amongst the engine lineup, some changes for the electrification of the platform, some changes in the aesthetics, and the big story here is all about the technology. Now, because technology can be a little bit of a dry subject, Volkswagen have put on a workshop event for us so we can hear in a lot more detail about how all of those features are tying together in the car. What do you need to be concerned about? Well, this is clearly not only an extremely popular company car, so if you are a fleet manager or a fleet driver, you are going to be interested to hear how that investment might be changing for you coming up. But 20% of those sales are still private buyers, so it's a very popular car with everyone. Has there been enough of a change to make you update your older model? Well, we're going to take a look and find out. We have 3 Passats with us here today to take a closer look at. We have the GTE, the Alltrack, and we're starting here at the R-Line. Why are we starting with the R-Line? Well, it has the most of the new features within its front appearance. Being a refresh, there are, of course, some details that are carried over from previous generations, so it's important to see as many as we can in one face, and this is a good representation of it. At first glance, when you take a really good look at this front end, you're going to see a lot of similarities that you recognize. That's always connected to the brand tightening, so the lines are looking more and more similar. And although we are missing a couple of distinct features, there is a lot here that's reminiscent of the Arteon, and that's very much an intentional move. We now have redesigned headlights in the front of the grille, and they're going to be full LED, and that comes as standard. If you want to spend a little bit more, you can have matrix LED. We'll look into that a little later on. If you're really interested in Volkswagen lighting design, check out our video we did when we took a behind-the-scenes look on lighting at Volkswagen. Some really interesting detail in there. What you need to know for the time being is that in terms of sharpness and contrast, the new LEDs are really, really good. But if you want the additional smart control, go with the full matrix. What does that mean in layman's terms? Well, it allows you the functionality. For example, if you're driving head-on into traffic on a country road, the matrix will adjust the light so it will create special blackout zones where you don't want to dazzle oncoming drivers or highlight things it thinks you need to be aware of, like pedestrians or deers by the side of the road. It really is the next generation of lighting technology. So I would definitely suggest, if you can spring for that, although it is a bit more, you're really going to be pleased you made that investment. As it relates to the aesthetic in the front of this car, do you know what? I'm going to stop myself just there. If that sounded a bit too salesy, I do want to stress, we did take a really good look into that, so check out the video. It is a good technology, and we don't recommend anything that we haven't personally tried. So I thought that was maybe a caveat that was worth mentioning. Back to the design, though. Lower down, we have a redesigned lower bumper, nicely integrated fog lamps here, and you can see that the styling is very consistent throughout the front. Now, I think it's reasonable to say that the most common complaint that I hear about Passats is that they're really good cars, but maybe just a little bit dull. Well, the problem is always that if you're creating something that has broad mass market appeal, you can't go too crazy on any of the design elements because you're always going to end up upsetting somebody. So what I will say is that when I look to a new design of Passat, what I'm looking for is clean, stylish, modern, and not overstated in any respect. This is not a sports car. It's not supposed to be a sports car. It should just look nicely on the road. So, yeah, maybe a little boring, but I think it's done a nice job as a refresh. It's clean, it's conservative, and it works. What do you think? We've come over to the Alltrack to show you the side profile. Now we have new wheel design available back here from 17 to 19 inches, so there's a good range to choose from. The Alltrack now has 17 centimeters of ground clearance. I think this is going to be an extremely popular choice with executives who can be sold on the idea of a Passat but still want something just a little bit different. It's a really nicely finished car. A little off-road, not too off-road. Now, if you're wondering how this compares in terms of space and size to its other competitors, I think it's worth pointing out that the estate version of this car is the more popular of the two between this and the sedan. If you really want killer space, the number one class leader is still going to be the Škoda Superb, but this provides more than enough space really for most people by a long way. And I like the way that the styling has been integrated into the car so it doesn't look too extended. The only thing with the Superb I always slightly feel when I look at it is that it is a really, really long car in profile. So this doesn't stretch out too far. Now, Thomas was very keen that I point out that this is the refresh for the European Passat. So that is different to the US one. If you want to find out what the US is up to with their Passat, please take a look. We'll pop a link below. AJ just took a look at that new version while he was over in the States, and it's a really nice refresh, but a distinct and separate car to this one. I think as you come up the flank of this design, there's nothing here that's going to blow your mind or really has changed significantly in terms of how this car presents to us aesthetically. But you know what? If it isn't broken, there's really no need to fix it. For the rear end, we've come over to the GTE. Now, the big news with the GTE is the fully redesigned electric performance. You can now get 55 kilometers on purely electric charge. Now, if that number sounds a bit confusing to you in terms of what's gone before, it really does depend on how you measure it. So they're also stating that you can have a 70-kilometer electric range. Okay, potato, potato. I think the important takeaway here is that you will be able to have more enough purely electric drive to get you to and from most regular jobs. And that's important because it does represent a significant saving on fuel. Now, of the 3 different platforms, you can have them in 3 different trim levels. There's the base, then there's the business, then there's the elegance. If you want the R-line styling, you have to go with one of the top 2 trims. But you can see here how the new design language is relating to all of them. Does this look familiar to you down here? This styling is very much in keeping with, say, the Arteon or the new Touareg or the T-Cross, and. Again, we're looking at the way that all of these lines are coming together. I think it looks really elegant and stylish, and it matches very nicely what we see here in terms of a new design language working on the lights. Now, this you might recognize from the Touareg. This is where we have a change, I guess, almost in philosophy about how we interact with our rear lights. As you can see, the motives at the moment are all this way. If you apply the brake light, these all drop off and you see the mirrored effect here, here, and here. And also, of course, up top here. The reason for that is in their research, what they found out is that changing the appearance has a much more striking effect than changing the brightness of the lights. And once you see it actually working, it makes perfect sense. It really does draw your attention to the driver in front braking. And after all, that is the most important thing that you're going to want if you're going along in one of these cars. Those aren't the only 2 changes. If we look slightly further down here towards the bottom, you can see we have a redesign of this rear air diffuser and everybody's favorite, possibly fake exhaust ports. I say possibly. They are just a design detail. They actually don't go through at all. They're solid. I don't find this so offensive, but I know a lot of people do. I quite like the styling here. Again, it's conservative. It is stylish. It's understated. I think it works for this car. What do you think?
right. She makes me, she make me feel alive, make me feel alive. Till you come back home, until you come back home, until you come back home.
Let's take a look inside and see what's changed in here. You don't get to be one of the most bought company cars ever without offering an almost bewildering array of different options. So I always say to people when they're considering a Passat, if you don't like the interior or one aspect or another, take another look. You'll find something that's right for you. There are so many different ways you can style up this car. You will find something you like. Now, again, on the downside of that, you might find a lot of the end product is a little bit on the bland side. But for my taste, I would sacrifice that additional style every time for practicality. And because of the vast quantity in which these have sold throughout the years, every single detail is very well considered and very effective at doing the job that it needs to do. That said, we have got some changes happening within this car in this generation, or at least this version of this generation. Most visually impressive amongst them? Well, I am going to admit to being a little bit sad. This generation sees the death of the analog clock in the middle. And what's it been replaced by? Well, a not so impressive label for the car and, of course, your hazard warning light. Although I do like the location here right in the center of the dashboard. I don't know, though. I kind of wish I could have my analog clock back. This is the top model, and that means we have an 11.7-inch digital cockpit here and a 9.2-inch screen here. This unit is known as the MIB3. That is the latest digital infotainment unit that Volkswagen currently stock. It only comes in the top 2 digital offerings for this car. So we're going to look a little bit later on in a lot more detail on that. So for now, all we really want to do is look at the aesthetic as to how this actually fits into the car. Well, come on, guys, you know me by now. You're never going to convince me to give up my analog volume dial, but there are a lot of other things that you do get with this system. Not least of which, and I'm not sure if it's actually functioning in this static car, is the ability to individually customize your screen so it looks the way that you want to. You can pick various elements of it and then change them for you. So it's not working on this screen, but we'll show you in a little bit more detail later. There we are. You can see it offers me all the things that I might want to look at within this sector of the screen, and I can change it and personalize it myself. Now, you might think, well, am I really going to be bothered by that? Well, I really think you might be in this car. You can set this car up for 6 different driver profiles digitally. And that means, of course, that you can set it up exactly the way that you want it and know that every time you get into this car, it will be just right for you. There are 34 different ambient lighting states that you can have in this car. Needless to say, you're going to know what you like. You're not going to want your partner using the car and messing everything around. They can with the 6 different profile that you can set up. Now, not only that, but they also have a really nice online set of organizations that allow you to take even further advantage. Let's say I leave my car at Hamburg Airport, but I take the key with me when I fly off to Berlin. And then I realize later that my meeting overran and I can't get home. Well, I can send a digital key through the online services to a friend or a colleague to come and pick up my car without me or the key ever needing to be anywhere near it. And I think that's really great. I can also use those services then to set up that profile for that driver. I can really see a value in that. Volkswagen are really pushing the idea that they want this platform to be more open and for other partners to have the opportunity to join them and offer extra services. I asked them how they were getting on with finding partners for that so far. They said maybe they're a little bit further ahead in the curve than other people might be, so far, not so much. But one example of something that they hope they'll be able to offer in future are things like having a delivery made to your trunk while you're at work. I could see that being very appealing. You just have the package left there. That's the only bit of the car that will unlock, and it will unlock using a digital key function, again, that you can supply using the service. That functionality just helps to make life easier. Also new for this generation, we have a brand new steering wheel. Now, as we already mentioned, this is capacitive. That means that the system knows if you're holding it and the way in which you are holding it. Now, this technology is really quite new, so we don't yet have a full list of understandings of how this can be integrated into the system to deliver us all kinds of effective things. But what it does know, What it does mean is that the car is able to get a lot more feedback from you as a driver, and that can only be a good thing. Along with that, we also have a redesign of the usability of these functions here. Again, what I really, really like about this car is the very thing that other people might not like about it, and that is its kind of general approach to things. These buttons are all there by virtue of thousands and hundreds of thousands of hours of understanding exactly how people are interacting with this particular car while they're using it. And of all of the car systems I use, I have to say I find Volkswagen's amongst the most intuitive and straightforward. So although that might look like a very wide range of options available on the steering wheel, they are all nicely intuitively placed. You'll get used to them very quickly, and you should find them easy and comfortable to use. We have climate controls here, which look more than familiar. They work really easily. I like that they haven't messed with this or changed it. It's a system we all know, we all like. It's very effective. Coming slightly further down, nothing looks radically different about this gear stick. Look over here. Interesting. I think this is going to split a little bit of opinion. Now, it's a USB-C port. Okay, all devices now standardly are USB-C, but we still have rather a lot of those legacy devices left kicking around. So until we all make that change, I think we're going to see a little bit of adapter action happening in here. An inductive charging pad here. Nice and spacious with a good drop into it, so your phone is not going anywhere no matter how fast you might be stopping. A quick word on the DCC now. Well, one of the criticisms of the predecessor was that there wasn't quite enough of a distinction between the various driving modes. We had either people saying it was too stiff or too comfortable in the comfort mode. Too comfortable, nobody ever complains about that. You know what I mean, not taut enough. Now, if we go to select the individual settings, we can see that we have a significant change here. You might know this from other Volkswagen systems. This allows us lots of different levels of customization. So somewhere on here, you are going to be able to find your driving style nicely matched. What actually happens when we're changing this? Well, we are changing the amount of oil that goes into those dampers. So it really does change the way that the car dynamic feels when you're driving it. And hopefully you'll be able to find something that is absolutely right for you. Coming slightly further back, we can see the central storage area. Well, we have another USB-C port in there. So anyone hoping they may have tucked away a USB somewhere, just for all those devices you still want to take advantage of, nope, you're still going to be in dongle world if you want to access them. But given the rate that such things progress, even if that annoys you today, I would say honestly, within 12 to 24 months, you'll never even remember a time at which you needed a USB standard port. So plenty of space in there, everything you could expect, nothing to really shock or amaze you, but probably that's a good thing. Let's take a look in the rear. Well, I don't know if you watched or remember my review of the Arteon, but my problem with that car was that stylistically it was absolutely fantastic, but that led to quite a lot of compromises in terms of the practicality. The thing I like the very most about the Passat is also the thing that most people complain about the most. And that is, sorry Volkswagen, there really isn't another word for this, the dullness of the car. Well, the drive is actually great. It's not going to set your world on fire, but it is great. The comfort, on the other hand, is just really nice. There's that awful word. I said it, but that really is the best way of describing it. Back here is really comfortable, and there is nothing here to bother you whatsoever. You could drive for many happy hours back here. The seats are really firm and nicely supportive. I have plenty of leg room. Look at my headspace. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters. I could sit back here for hours and hours and hours, and that is the whole point of the design of this vehicle. Nothing here really is going to massively impress anyone in terms of styling. But honestly, the number one thing you're ever going to be doing in a car is sitting in it or driving it. And the great thing about the back of this car is I can tell you 100% honestly, it is really comfortable back here. So if you're buying this car or leasing this car with a view to needing to have rear seat passengers back here that are either grown up and needing to work or elderly and needing a bit more support, you are not going to be able to have any complaints about the experience. it's roomy, it's comfortable. Come on, what else do you really want? In 45 years of production, you would think Volkswagen would have figured out a couple of items on this car that they really, really knew what they were doing with. And I don't think that's anywhere better illustrated than this boot. Not only is it nicely large enough, but it will take from 650 to 1,780 litres of cargo room. Is that the biggest within its segment? Nope, that's the Skoda, but look at it. I think there is plenty enough space there for anything you could reasonably want to fit in the back of here. And as a reps car or just a family car with a dog in the back, come on, do you really need more room than this? But it's not only the space that it offers, it's the practicality as well. It's very nicely thought out. You have luggage, holding points exactly where you need them to be, nice discreet extra storage areas. I really am a big fan of these things. That folds your rear seats flat from the rear without having to mess around getting to them from up there. And everything is just exactly where you need it to be and works in a very straightforward, effortless way. Also have this nice zero depth entry load in the rear. So again, there's nothing here that's going to blow your mind radically, but you know what? It all just works. And that's what I'm looking for from a boot. It won't come as a massive surprise to you to learn that the Passat is available with an absolute myriad or blizzard of different control systems, but what has changed is the way that they interact together. Volkswagen are now calling this IQ Drive, and basically these systems are now all talking to each other, and that really does change a couple of the features in which the car works. So we now have a capacitive steering wheel. What on earth is that? Well, it means the car is taking immediate feedback and cues from you. So a classic example would be you have your cruise control set. Now, in a first generation cruise control, that simply means the car is going to drive whatever speed you set it to. Second generation, we have adaptive cruise control, and that means that the car is responding to information that it sees either from its radar or its camera, slowing down for traffic, speeding up when the traffic gets moving. Well, we're even beyond that now in third generation, and that means that GPS data is interacting as well. So the car is responding not only to conditions it knows that are coming up ahead. For example, you have your cruise control set, a roundabout's coming. But the camera will always take priority, and that means that even if the car thinks it knows what speed you want to drive and it thinks it knows what speed the road has assigned to it, if there's a temporary condition such as roadworks that would result in a reduced speed limit, the car will react to that. Now, not only that, remember that capacitive steering wheel? Well, consider what you do when you're in heavy traffic. You slow to a stop. The car doesn't necessarily know what you're thinking or exactly what is happening, but what it does know is how you are behaving. So when you put your hands on that steering wheel, that acts as a cue for the car to get ready to move. So it's thinking as a complete unit rather than lots of independent one. And your role as a driver, of course, is a little bit like a symphony conductor. You're in charge of everything, but the car wants to help you in whichever way it can by putting everything together. My sense is that this is very much the start of how things will be in future. We talk a lot about autonomous driving and what role that will have in the future of motoring. More and more the experts that I talk to believe that it's not going to be a case that the car will simply take over doing everything for you, only that the assistance that the systems can offer you will become more and more refined. So you'll become less and less aware of them, and they will just help you to become a better, safer driver over time. And that's something I think we probably could all use a little bit more of. Let's take a look under the bonnet of the GTE and see what's going on underneath there. Well, what you are looking at is a 1.4 litre TSI petrol engine combined with an electric motor. That gives us a power output of 150 horsepower from the petrol and an additional 115 from the electric. When combined together, that makes for a total of a 218 horsepower total power output. Now, you can have your choice of gearbox with the platforms, but if you're going to go with the more powerful engines, you automatically get the 7-speed DSG. It's very refined after all of this time and works really nicely for putting that power straight to the wheels where you want it. Now, the electric platform that we're looking at here now has an effective range, depending on how you measure it, of between 55 and 70 kilometers on the road, which should be more than enough to take you from your home to most places that you usually would be working. When we did the introduction earlier and we took a little look at the new front design of the Passat, I talked a little bit about what full matrix LED lights looked like and how they performed. Well, here we have a display that gives you an example of exactly what happens when you're using them. You can see that we have an intelligent lighting system. Volkswagen are calling this IQ light, and what that allows you to do is really put the light exactly where you want it. I'm not sure how long I'm going to need to stand in front of this display until it shows the bit that I want to show you, but specifically, it's about how that light is used. This gives you an idea of what that technology looks like underneath the skin. Now, all manufacturers produce some sort of variant on this, and they have different ideas. Can you see the way that that dog there, for example, was highlighted to make you aware of it? Now, again, because all of these systems are working together, if you're using a drive system here, we have the light bending with the corner. Again, if you haven't seen our light special, it's well worth taking a look at it because it gives you a better insight as to how some of these systems work. You can see that the lights have pinned out this road warning to give you extra detail, and here we have a black spot where these two cars are, so these drivers are not being blinded by the oncoming light. But best of all, you don't have to dim your lights anymore because the Matrix fully takes care of this. This technology really is remarkable to watch in use. And best of all, because it's now working in concert with all the other systems, you really don't even have to think about it. It has your GPS data, so it knows the road conditions you're coming up on, and you're able to just concentrate on the driving, which late at night, especially in bad weather conditions, really is all you want to be doing. I've been joined by René Bonzio, who comes from Volkswagen's Infotainment Development Department, and he is going to explain to me exactly why we're supposed to be getting crazily excited about the MIB3, which Thomas was keen to point out to me before we arrived at this event, has nothing to do with the Men in Black, I understand.
No, not quite with the Men in Black, but we have a black bezel, but that's all what's in common, I think. So the MIB3 is a complete new generation of infotainment system for VW. What we can see here is we have an added personalization feature, like we have with a gesture control some more skins that you can personalize completely. Like you can see if change any features you want to have or any functions you want to have completely like you want to have it as your personal feature, like putting any switches anywhere you want. You have like personalization feature that covers all your features that you have, all your setups. You can take all your setups to another car, just sit in your new car, enter email address and your password, and all the settings you know from your old car will will take over to your new car. Yeah, the car is always on, so you don't need to take account of putting in a smartphone or a SIM card or so on. The car is always on.
Great. So we have a lot of personalization features that we can change with this unit. Here's what I really want to know. I know we can only have the MIB3 with the top two versions of the system, right? The one, if we go for the base, the entry level, we don't get the MIB3.
You get an MIB3 in 3 levels. You have a radio, a small navigation, and a big navigation system.
Which one's the best?
The big one, of course.
Ah, come on! I was hoping to trick in there. He wasn't buying that. Do we get the same size of the digital cockpit, irrespective of which of the MIB systems we go for?
Yeah, you have the same size of a digital cockpit or a traditional and a traditional infotainment cluster instrument.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Well, I've got to ask you this. If I go with a smaller one, can I have my volume knob back?
Yeah, the smaller navigation has the volume knob.
The smaller one, there you go. I'm going to take a look at that a little bit later. All of this technology is very nice to look at. In practical terms, once I've got this set up the way that I like it and it's fine, what are the real differences offered by this system from the predecessor? What difference am I going to be able to feel when I use this every day as a driver?
Yeah. So one thing is that this is an always-on system, so you don't need to care about any online updates or map updates or navigation updates. Everything is calculated online. You have wireless CarPlay in there, and you have web radio and streaming of very favorite music streaming services.
Great. So combined with the inductive charging, then finally I don't have to be permanently plugged into the car in order to be able to access the features I like.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that actually is quite a nice feature. It does look very nice, and my bugbear with any infotainment system is always the processor speed. As the generations keep marching forwards, I'm always happy to see them a little faster, a little sharper, a little crisper, and this display looks really nice to engage with. So, this is the MIB3. What kind of excitement and goodness are you working on now? What can I look forward to happening in the future?
That's a big secret, I have to admit. Yeah, but this is the basis of some new further infotainment generations that we will show with some of our new cars.
Awesome. So I guess we're just going to have to catch up with you at Geneva to find out if we can get you to let any more cats out of that bag.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you there.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The engines are always going to be an extremely important detail with the Passat lineup. Finding just the exact right balance of what you want between the economy and the efficiency, but still the power is really important. So we have two, I can't use the word brand new, can I? Two heavily revised, is that the right term, engines?
Yeah, that's true, that's true. We have the 1.5 liter TSI engine you mentioned with 150 horsepower, and we have the typical 2 liter TDI 110 horsepower, which we really deeply changed in detail, fulfilling the newest emission regulations, and power and torque and everything is really nice with these engines.
So, and they now all come right across the lineup with particle filters. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, you're totally right. The auto particle filter is completely new with the gasoline engines, and of course was with the TDI engines. All our combustion engines are fulfilling the Euro 60 temp regulations, but I want to have a special look on the GTE. We now have, if you compare it to the Formula regulations, NEFZ, former 50 kilometers, now 70 kilometers, Mexican WLTP 55 kilometer range, which is, if you have in mind the average use of a car per day, can make a Passat GTE to a full electric car. So this is really a big step forward and a big advantage for the new Passat GTE.
So that is actually a really big development. In terms of which car you would most like customers to buy, if you had your pick for the engine performance, which one are you going to go with?
I can definitely say that would be the GTE. I've used the GTE to prepare for this event, the former model. And it is a brilliant combination out of power and torque. So if you think about the special push of the E-engine, if you want to overtake or drive quite fast with the car, it's amazing. And on the other hand, it leads the driver to drive careful and to have a kind of ecological and just to concentrate on using the car as a full electric car. That is a different way of fun to drive, and this is the way, definitely what is the future. And this is, as I said, fun to drive. The GTE is really, that would be my car.
I can really see the appeal of that, especially because as the systems become more integrated, it's nice having that extra layer of the car, having more interplay between how it wishes to use its power for your driving style. Now, that's the one that we should buy. Which one will we buy? Which of all the engines on offer do you think that's what we're going to buy?
That's a difficult question. I mean, the average customer uses the car for the complete day. So he makes 300 kilometers, 400 kilometers, maybe a day with the car. So therefore, it would be, I think, the 2-liter TDI engine because of the real good emissions and fuel economy. So maybe this is the perfect choice for a long-distance ride.
So at the moment, we have a very nice lineup of some pretty efficient, pretty nicely performing engines. How about the executive who says, yeah, that's great, but I still hunger for those days. That lovely 8-cylinder engine. Are we going to get a big beast in the lineup at any time?
So the biggest beast we have on the lineup is a 272 horsepower TSI engine. But to be honest, this car isn't a race car. It's an agile car. It's a fun to drive car, especially if you equip it with the new DCC system where we can adjust the setup of the suspension. But if you want a real emotional car that is fun to drive, maybe we have to meet next summer when we discuss an upcoming Arteon R, maybe?
Yeah. Now, as per our conversation earlier, I'm going to be thinking a little less of the headroom in the rear of that car if I'm driving around in an R model. So I am going to be very excited to take a closer look at that. In the meantime, I think we have a really nice balance with the engine lineup here between economy, efficiency, and still more than sufficient power to take you around in comfort. So thank you for giving us the insight. What do you think, guys? The future's GTE? Are you convinced? Tell us what you think. Whenever we start talking about connectivity, a whole slew of people say, oh, connectivity, really? So we found someone really exciting to tell us about this, which is Volkswagen We. Please, what is it and why should we care?
Yeah, we have Volkswagen We, which is the ecosystem of Volkswagen, and we concentrate and celebrate the customer in the middle of the system. So we have the Volkswagen ID, which you need to access all digital connectivity and mobility services. And with the new Passat, we will have a new offer to the customer. We have We Connect in the car, which is an always-on system. So the car is always online, and we can use all services around mobility and connectivity within the car.
That's actually really good because, I lost Jonas there. Because as we were saying earlier, I think the customer will be at the center of this world rather than the car. So you have your identity, and in case you're worried about thinking, I don't know with my identity and how I feel about sharing the information, the point is to give you the best service that's achievable, I think. So because of this, I really liked the idea of the car being permanently online. So if it wants an update, needs an update, it gets that information. I don't actually have to do anything. And I also like the idea that my driver profile then is multi-car in essence. I don't have to limit what I like only to the one vehicle. So I can clearly see an advantage in that. We talked earlier about the possibility of finding partners to bring into this ecosystem. Have you found any partners to bring into this ecosystem?
Yeah, we will start with the Passat. We will start We Deliver in the car, and we will have McCleaner, which is a cleaning company, which can clean inside and outside the car, and we will have Johnny Fresh, which gives you cleaned laundry bag. So you can put in your dirty laundry and you get it back cleaned right to your car, delivered to your car. And we are looking for other companies and other partners to have like delivery and service partners on the car, which are open to use access. So we give access to the car and they can do services.
I'm pretty sure my children are going to be excited to learn whether this is a feature that can be added to doing homework. They leave the homework in the car, they come back the next day, the homework is done. I think they would like this. But so far we have clothes, deliveries. Can you envisage other things you would like to offer if they're available through this service?
Yeah, probably service maintenance features you can imagine, or deliveries of grocery to your car right at the spot when at the time you leave the office you can get your groceries right in the car and take them home. That would be really nice.
Cool. Well, it sounds like the exciting thing about the platform is the opportunities that are there potentially for the future. And who knows where that's going to take us. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. It was really great to meet you. The Passat's clearly come a long way since its launch in 1973, and you could be forgiven for saying that this latest generation hasn't radically changed too much at all. But I think there's a lot of reason why that's a good thing. Just like the way that the car's put together itself, when you consider the sum of the parts of all of the small changes that have taken place, they really do result in a car that has a lot more to offer at its price point and within its segment. It certainly isn't going to be the most exciting car you'll ever own. But you know what? When you put everything together, it just well be the most practical, enjoyable car that you ever own. There are lots of refinements here that really don't hurt the Passat at all. I'm particularly interested to see how the new heightened speed limit of 210 kilometers per hour on that autonomous driving system is actually going to work out in real terms. What I really like is the way that we can get the real-time updates through the car without needing to worry the driver or take it to the showroom or anything like that. That means as the data comes in from this model back to Volkswagen, the drive systems can only be refined and improved. This may well be the first really future-proof sedan that we're looking at. Now, I say may well be, Obviously, the data comes back, but we still have to see what happens with that. Firmware updates are not something that have been pain-free traditionally with cars, so we'll have to see if they're going to work a similar model to the software platforms that their cars are now running on. Only the future can let us know that. In the meantime, I think the question that most people will be wanting to know is their money going to be safe with this car as an ongoing investment? Well, pricing starts from around about 31,000 euro. And according to Volkswagen at the moment, although they're still refining their pricing structure, it should be broadly speaking the same as the outgoing model. So you should be getting more car for your money. I'm always wary of that. There's always a little tweak here and there in terms of the pricing. But in terms of return on investment, if the data is anything to go by, this is one of the safest places you can put your money within this segment. So, in sum, is this car going to blow your mind? No. Is it going to represent a really secure investment for you within the segment that's going to deliver a driving experience that you enjoy and that you'll be happy with for years? I would definitely say yes. In terms of value for money, this is a very busy segment. You have a lot of different cars to look at. But in terms of buying something that you're going to feel happy that you bought, I think you might have to look around for quite a long time to find something that's going to deliver quite as much at the same price point. That's my verdict. Please tell me what you think below. If you have any questions, please pop them there too. Please subscribe. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and we hope we'll see you again soon.